Ladies and gentlemen, we've made it to game 6 in this series, and it's been a lot of fun thanks to the last game. Now, it's been a wonky playoffs. Kawhi's now done. Chris Paul up in the air. Obviously, no Kyrie. James Harden playing at best, 25% in that last game. You know, James Harden playing 46 minutes, all but 2 minutes, at best, 25%. Yeah, this is the playoffs, and a lot of stars are out or barely hanging on, but the one that's showing up right now is Kevin Durant. And my God, y'all know what he did. And if you didn't know, he played all 48 minutes. He had he's the only player to ever do what he did. So arguably the best playoff performance. And somebody out there will say, oh no, Michael Jordan, 50+ point game in the finals. Okay, I understand. I said one of the best, arguably the best, right? But the only player to ever have 45+ points, he had 49, a triple-double, which he had 17 rebounds, and shoot 70% or better. Nobody's ever done that. So be that efficient while being that productive and basically do everything for your team. Pick up every single assist, rebound, steals, blocks. Insane performance. Nobody can stop him. And this is the big thing I want to point out at the front, and then we'll get into the player props, the DFS stances, and just the betting line for this game. I do have a bet on this game on the spread, not the total. People are saying Giannis Antetokounmpo. Why not guard KD with Giannis Antetokounmpo? The people that are saying that are kind of exposing themselves. In game 1 and game 2, they try to put Giannis on him, and oh yeah, Kevin Durant went right by him. It didn't matter. If anything, it's just going to get Giannis in more foul trouble. Kevin Durant is damn near 7 feet tall. He can shoot over Giannis Antetokounmpo, and he's quicker than Giannis. It didn't work in games 1 and games 2. Giannis was on skates, and that is why you did not see him on there. Now, Giannis, after the game, said he wants to go on Durant. They tried everybody on Durant. PJ Tucker on Durant, 5 more fouls. That's 2 games in a row with 5 personal fouls. It works somewhat. He's the best at guarding him, getting in his head, just playing physical, if anything, right? Playoff basketball, letting him play a little bit harder out there. But that's one thing. And the other big thing to point out, and we can kind of break this down as we get into it, is why they did not target James Harden more. He was clearly 25% at best in this game. Like, health-wise, not there. Not that mobile. Could not shift all that much. So not ISOing him as much and Giannis taking fadeaway jumpers late in the game was a surprising thing that I do think you'll see adjustments for. So before we get into breaking down the specifics on each team and each player, I have Milwaukee -3.5. That's where the line opened. I would have wished I could get it at -3 or -2.5. It opened at -3.5. I took Milwaukee -3.5. And I think recency bias and remembering or forgetting that Milwaukee was up by over 20+ points at one point in this game, I think a lot of people will forget that. It took arguably one of the greatest postseason performances ever by Kevin Durant. His best for sure, in my opinion. And then it also just took a complete falling off of fundamentals and how you should play from a defensive standpoint, but also attacking, ISOing injured players. So I do think I like Milwaukee -3.5. This whole video will talk through why that is. But they were up by 20+ at one point in this game. There's still no Kyrie. There's 20% of James Harden out there. And then Kevin Durant shouldering a load. Can he do that again? Can he play all 48 minutes after just doing it? Obviously, that's going to weigh on him. I think he can have a fine game. I think he can play 44 minutes is where I have him at. But I'll take Milwaukee to force the game 7 here, -3.5. Let's get deeper into that analysis. Let's start on the Brooklyn side of this one. And we can start by looking at the minutes that I'm giving them. Now, game 5 is obviously pivotal. You just have to win 1 out of your last 2. You had Harden playing 46 and Durant playing 48 minutes. I'm not giving Durant the full 48. Now I'm giving him 44. It would be very impressive. Like even in games where LeBron played the full 48 in the NBA Finals back in the day against Golden State, there was games then he would play 46 or 45 and just try and get a minute or two of rest, especially if they get any type of lead in this game. They're playing from behind for most of it, so Durant being in there for every single minute in the first half and to start the second half out strong was very important to just try and keep the game within 15, right, instead of it blowing out by 30, in which it's really hard to come back from a 20-point deficit compared to a 30-point deficit just time-wise. So I have Durant at 44 minutes. I have James Harden dropping 8 minutes to 38. And Harden wasn't completely ineffective. Now, shooting-wise, he was terrible in that game, and because of the injury. But he had 8 assists. He was setting players up. He was able to do that in a way that probably not a lot of other players on this team could because they don't have many other ball handlers. Mike James drops to 4 minutes in this game. He might have been their best setup man outside of Durant other than Harden. So Harden clearly had an impact on this game. Somebody else who had an impact, a major one, was Jeff Green, who I have at 34 minutes today. He played around that in the last game. Jeff Green clearly not going to produce the same way he did last time, but that's his role in this team, especially when Kevin Durant is on, and that's what James Harden injured and not really much of a threat. When Kevin Durant is on, you're going to get open shooters on the outside when Durant goes to his elbow shots or to the paint. And that's what happened as Jeff Green started this game 7 of 7 from 3, only missed 1 3, and it was a wide open shot, believe it or not, and he had 27 points in the game. He played 35 minutes, and his defense was honestly pretty atrocious. It's just a door. It's a revolving door with Giannis coming in the paint against him, which I expect more of as an adjustment this next game, and we've kind of been saying that since like game 3, but hopefully we start to get that. I expect more Giannis in the paint at some point. and Jeff Green, if he's not shooting well, there is a chance that they go more Blake Griffin there, who's been better on Giannis. But when you're shooting 7 of 7 to start from 3, you stay on the floor more. So although people are going to think that Jeff Green is this mortal lock on a one-game showdown slate, his props are all locks for overs, it's not the case. 3-point shooting, especially shooting 7 of 8, is not consistent. And when you're not good on defense, there is a chance you could lose some minutes to one Blake Griffin. And I saw a lot of people saying, why aren't you double teaming Kevin Durant, especially down the stretch? And I get it, but there's still James Harden out there who they respected enough to at least put a player on him. And when a player is 7 of 8 from 3 and Jeff Green, it's hard to double team. If you want to send double teams, you're leaving somebody open. And when he's making shots, when Landry Shamet down the stretch is making shots, it's harder to do that. So I understand, just put 2 guys on him. He's the only guy who can kill you right now. Not necessarily the case when other guys are making shots. You probably see some more double teams in those crucial moments in Game 6. Another guy to talk about is Joe Harris, who only has shot 32% from 3, and a lot of that was in the early part of the series. He shot 1 of 7 in this past game. His props in the prop markets are down. We'll talk about that. I like those. His overall price point is down in DFS now. He still played 7 minutes. He's good on defense. He clearly spaces the floor for them. He's eventually, as one of the best 3-point shooters in the league, going to stop shooting 32% in this series and not 1 of 7 again. Joe Harris, eventually, right? Hopefully we get there. Hopefully this series, we can see him get there at some point. But eventually, you give him another 10, 15, 20 games, he's going to stop this slump. He's going to turn it around. It's clearly just a small sample here. So Joe Harris, I'm not losing faith. Just like I didn't lose faith in Marcus Morris. And then what does he come out and do? He shoots 5 of 6 from 3-point range. Like, that's what these good 3-point shooters and good shooters in general do. So when everybody else is down on them and their stock is dipping, we'll buy it at the low and we'll see it soar on the high, hopefully tomorrow night for Joe Harris. Now, 7-man rotation is basically what Brooklyn ran. They had Nicholas Claxton playing 2 minutes. I have Claxton at 4 minutes in this game. The thing with Claxton is Jeff Green is now back. Blake Griffin is there. Blake Griffin fine on defense, can stretch, make some shots, was getting some assists, and obviously Jeff Green did what he did. There's no point to have Claxton out there. He doesn't stretch the floor. He's not going to be able to shoot threes for you. When both those guys are there, it's hard for Claxton to get on the court. So now with Jeff Green back, I really don't see Claxton being all that much involved. I have him at 4 minutes of play today. See the rest of the minutes, I have Landry Shamet at 24 minutes. And Mike James dropped to 4 minutes. I gave him 6 in this game. You saw Bruce Brown start off the game and just have some turnovers, a personal foul, and they ran with Landry Shamet, who was playing better. Jeff Green. When Jeff Green cools off and Bruce Brown sees a little bit more run in this game, I expect him to play at least 20 minutes, potentially even 22 instead of the 13 he played in that last game. The closing lineup in that game was Durant, Harden, Harris, Green, the guy who's shooting well, and Shamet, just somebody that they liked a little bit better and shooting well down the stretch, made a nice 3, a big 3 over Bruce Brown. So with all that said, the players that I like right now from this team from a DFS standpoint in this order: Kevin Durant, Jeff Green, Shamet, Blake Griffin, Joe Harris. Those 5. That's it. I don't have any interest in James Harden. Slight interest in Bruce Brown, but he's expensive right now. If he starts again, you can get the bump up from him. And I mentioned Joe Harris, and I have a prop taken on Joe Harris right now before we get into the Milwaukee side. I have Joe Harris over 21.5 fantasy points. You can take this down below on Prize Picks. They're the sponsor of the program. Any money you put in, they'll give you a free bet up to $100. So any money you put in, if you put in $25, they'll give you a $25 free betting credit. Any amount up to $100 if you use the link down below and the code SAL. Simple. SAL. You might as well do it. Even if you plan on, it's a limited time offer. So even if you plan on doing this for the NFL season, you might as well take advantage of it right now. So the first part of this prop right now for me, and this is not a parlay, you can make one if you want to, but I have it placed that if I end up hitting it, I get 2x. If I end up missing it, I only lose like half my money. So it's not a straight up parlay. That's a nice beneficial thing. It's legal in a lot more states than you think. It's legal in Florida. It's legal in New York. So people in those states would know there's not that many things offered, if any. So check it out. Joe Harris over 21 is the first part of that, linked down below. And to close the door in this Nets team, you can see what they're doing with Kyrie Irving off the court this season. I'm just taking Kyrie off. I know that Jared Allen's not on the team anymore. I know there's some other players not on the team anymore, but if you just start to take too many guys off, you don't get a true sample. What you're seeing during this time, the big differences in terms of point per minute production, it's hard to look at James Harden because he's clearly not healthy, but Kevin Durant, 1.62 fantasy points per minute. We know he's fantastic. We know he's good. He was 96% owned in the showdown slate the other day. He's going to be damn near 100%. He probably should be 100% owned this time out. 1.62. When you're playing as many minutes as he has right now, it's going to be very hard to pass up. Kevin Durant for me is going to project out for like 65 fantasy points. His over-under is 62.5 in the prop markets for fantasy points. But more than likely, if he can play 44 to 46 and not just 40, he's going to push towards 70 points. So I'm very close to taking the over on Kevin Durant. I just wanted to show you exactly why that is and how that gets much more beneficial. And Blake Griffin continues to be a point per minute producer when one of the big threes off the court at 0.96. So now we get to the Milwaukee side of this. When they shot their best in the series last game, 13 of 32, 40.5%, they just failed to attack James Harden when he was hobbled. They could have ISO'd with Drew. They did ISO with Drew. They did ISO with Giannis. They were just settling for jump shots. At one point, it was an ISO. Drew versus Harden, a gimpy Harden. And he doesn't get by him. He doesn't even try to get by him. He just shoots a jump shot, not even a three-pointer, like 2 feet in front. The most inefficient spot in the worst section to do it, or the worst timing against an injured player. Very moment that's going on Twitter right now. Maybe you've seen it. It's not iconic, but it's memorable. Giannis. He's dribbling. He's backing him up. He takes a turnaround jump shot, nowhere near the basket, and he misses pretty badly. James Harden said, "I've got this." No, you don't, right? If Giannis goes through him there, I mean, he's not going to be able to guard him. There's nobody in the paint at that game. On the court was the closing lineup where Jeff Green, he's been dominating all game, and Durant is the biggest player on the court to try and stop him at the rim. Not going to happen. It's either foul shots, which sure are an issue for Giannis, or you're closing and then getting the and one. So, yes, bad shot selection. I expect that to be an adjustment that they change. Just attack Harden more. It was pretty clear and obvious that he was not going to be able to play defense usually in general, but let alone at this point where his health is. They can double team KD more as a way. You're not going to have Green making as many shots. So maybe there's less of a threat out there. And Giannis wants to guard KD in game 6. KD won that battle in games 1 and 2. So as an adjustment, maybe you put Giannis on him at times, but you might draw some fouls. You might waste some of Giannis's energy. So my adjustment would be, hey, tell Giannis after that post-game interview, you're not doing that. You saw Milwaukee have a really nice advantage in transition in the first half. They just had that second half poor shot selection in the ways that they attacked Harden. But first half, a lot of great things. Up 21 points at one point, right? So we're taking the -3.5 there. Now the rotations and foul trouble, a lot of things happen in this game. Milwaukee basically ran a 7-man rotation, plus Forbes. He had like 13 minutes in the game. Drew lost 4.5 minutes early on because he picked up his 3rd personal foul, which led to some more Pat Connaughton run. He would have played around 39 minutes in this game if it was not for that. PJ Tucker got in more foul trouble, 5 personal fouls, also leading to more Pat Connaughton run. Elijah Bryant plays like 2 minutes in the first half. You saw Bobby Portis play 0 minutes in this game. I have Bobby Portis in for like 6 right now just because don't really know where to put those 6 minutes. I don't know if I trust Connaughton getting 32 minutes again. I have Connaughton at 24, and we could look right now at the Milwaukee Bucks minutes on the screen. I've got Connaughton at 24. These 5 minutes, so I gave him 5, not 6. 5 minutes of Bobby Portis. He played none in the last game. He was a did not play coach's decision. He had his probably best game in limited time, getting a couple blocks in game 4. Doesn't play in game 5. Just doesn't match up well. I'm kind of debating giving 2 more minutes or 3 more minutes to Connaughton off of Bobby Portis. Want to see what the starting lineup looks like. But right now, that is where we're at. Gave 1 minute to Thanasis Antetokounmpo, who usually checks in for a half a minute to a minute and a half. Last game, getting about a minute and a half. So this is where we're at with the minutes right now. I'm giving big minutes. 42 for Giannis, 44 for Middleton, 40 for Drew Holiday as it stands, Lopez 34, and the other starter I'm expecting to still be PJ Tucker at 34. And now where this has me stand from a fantasy standpoint, and then we'll get into the props, is right now in my rankings, I have it Giannis, Brook Lopez, Chris Middleton, Drew Holiday, and then also the guys who look the best, but it's because of their cheapest, is Pat Connaughton and PJ Tucker. They're the 2 best plays on the slate in terms of punts or below $3,000. I would say Pat Connaughton is my favorite. You saw the 32 minutes last time out. I don't think that happens again, but there's obviously an ability for it to happen, especially if Bobby Portis plays 0 minutes yet again, which saw last game, decent chance it happens. And then overall in the slate, these are the fellas, the guys who rank out as the best yeses for me. Now, if I just go point per dollar wise, Pat Connaughton and PJ Tucker will pop up towards the top. Neither of them are projected for over 18 fantasy points. Pat Connaughton's barely hitting right now 17, and Tucker barely 14 for me. All the projections and ranks you can check out down below on Patreon. The optimizer will help you out. Projections ranks for props, betting, things like that, top plays, player pools, SuperDraft, all that stuff. Those guys are just right now question marks for me. Not question marks, they're in a player pool, but they're not as secure of plays because the minutes are not as secure. They're not good offensive players, Tucker, Connaughton, so they're not guesses, but they do pop out as the best plays because they are dirt cheap right now. I'd prefer both of them over Landry Shamet, for example. Other than that, though, my top 5 plays are Kevin Durant and Jeff Green, who again, Jeff Green, we liked him last game. I like him again this game. He grades out really well. But he shot 7 of 8 from 3. Everybody's going to play him this time if you're talking fantasy contests. He's not going to shoot that well again. And if he's not shooting that well and he's playing poorly on defense against Giannis, who should make an adjustment to get to the basket more, if that all happens, you might see Blake Griffin playing 36 minutes and Jeff Green playing 28 instead. And Jeff Green less likely to, still a cheap player, but less likely to go off or even get to this salary. Giannis, Brook Lopez, and Chris Middleton just round out that top 5. So that is where I'm at right now from a top 5 overall standpoint. Just want to mention the other part of this prop is Drew Holiday over 36 fantasy points. I'll kind of maybe get some more props from points and assists and rebounds, all that type of stuff. But again, price picks, you can check it out down below. I took Drew Holiday over 36 fantasy points. I think he will attack Harden more. They have to make that adjustment, stop taking bad jump shots. He played a little bit better in that last game, had like 17 real life points because Harden was gimpy. Do that some more. We'll take Drew Holiday over 36 fantasy points. We'll take Joe Harris over 21. We pair those together. You get a free bet if you use the code SAL. You can check it out down below. Some free $Ruskis. That's where we're at right now. -3.5 on Milwaukee. Those are the 2 player props. That's where we're staying in the DFS streets. Thank you for tuning in today. Like and subscribe before you go. Check out Patreon if you're interested in joining the community. There's going to be no live stream later today. By the time you're watching this, actually, I'm going to be in Colorado, and I'll be there for the whole weekend. So no more coverage of the NBA until Monday, sadly. I know Friday, Saturday, Sunday, there's going to be some nice basketball games. Saturday, if this series goes to Game 7, which will be a great basketball game. No coverage from a YouTube standpoint, but there will be coverage on Patreon. My projections, my ranks, my top plays, everything I use to make these videos will be over there if you want to be sure to get insured, that and more. You can check out Patreon down below. See you all on Monday in the next video. The weekend we'll have some NFL content. See you on Monday for some more NBA.